And good morning, everybody. Hey. Legion. Mario says, I win. Golf and Fish is seething. Mario with first blood this morning. I'm proud of you, brother. This show is going to go a little different than what I had initially planned. Basically because the Grok summarization tool is not working quite the way I had expected it to. So we're going to play with it. I've still got some stuff that I want to talk about related to that, and we'll dig into that. So here's the intro. Good morning. And Mario says, of course he named his AI with the Valentine reference. That's actually on my show notes this morning. That was part of what I was going to talk about a little bit. And there's actually quite a bit to unpack from that interesting word, grok. But before I get to that, I see Mom is watching. Good morning, Ma. Love you. Glad you're watching this morning. I hope you guys are still having fun. I hope Sonny's holding up okay on the trip. And when are y'all coming back? Just out of curiosity, if just send me a text message or say something in the chat. Either works. But yeah, and so yeah, Legion had first blood this morning. I see Uncle Steve. Good morning. I see another Steve. The Banhammer's with us this morning. I got two Steves and two Dannys. This should be a Tuesday because we got a two for rock and roll. So good morning, everybody. Thanks for watching. Here's what I wanted to talk about. And I say it that way because my plan changed ever so slightly in the course of doing the show prep this morning. There is a new feature for Grok. So Grok is the AI assistant, AI, it's another big language model, but it's directly connected to X, Twitter. And the new feature is not working correctly yet, I have discovered, and I'll show you. I went ahead and experimented with it. What I'd wanted to do was to just straight pull it up and use it this morning and show you some cool stuff, but it's just not ready for mainstream for prime time yet. And I'll go so far as to say it may even be that I don't correctly understand how to operate it yet. And if that's the case, like I'm a cut above on that kind of stuff. So if it's not clear and easy for somebody like me to operate it, then it's not ready for the average person to use it casually. But what the feature is supposed to do, in theory, is you should be able to basically just dump a whole long legal document into Grok, and it will produce for you a concise and accurate summary of that legal document. Now, that sounds like a great tool if they get it working correctly. It may be that it's more complex than I understand at this point, but if that's the case, then it's too complex for the average user. And that's fine. If it's a starting point, great. Now, I don't think that there should be a future ever where a tool like that is used exclusively by a lawyer. Danny asks, or a House or Senate bill. So I had a conversation with Grok earlier about the feature, and Grok explained itself to me and went so far as to claim that, yes, House, Senate, but any kind of legal document, or medical document, complex medical contract. It basically anywhere that you've got dense legalese that's difficult for the average layperson to understand, it should be able to draw out the key points and summarize the basic point of the bill, of the document. Where I see this being incredibly useful in the future for me, doing the analysis type shows, where we talk about like an omnibus, and I want to be able to point to you to the line items where, Congress is spending another $4 trillion. Let's take a look at this, $500 million to study the effect of alcohol use on prostitution clients in China being spent in U.S. taxpayer dollars. That's something that actually happened, and it happened in a single line item in an omnibus, right? Millions of dollars spent to study the mating habits of a specific species of South African spider. Taxpayer money spent by an omnibus, a single line item. So if the summary can concisely pull all that information out of one of these bills and put it up there where you can see it easily, instead of me having to read several hundred pages of a bill that was published 4 hours ago in order to go live and talk about it in the morning, which I have done. I have skimmed several hundred pages. I read fast, but there are limits, right? And it's difficult to deal with that much dense information, especially if you have to deal with several of them. So this could be a fantastic tool. That said, I have concerns about a tool like this being used by real lawyers and them leaning on it too much. So I could see a world where an AI is tasked by a lawyer to find several distinct and individual cases pertaining to a particular case to find precedents, and then the lawyer goes and reads those cases to see which ones are appropriate to the case that he's making. I can even see a lawyer asking, "Hey, Grok, show me 50 different cases dealing with this particular legal question. Okay, now summarize each of those cases for me so I can see the key points." And then, okay, I've got the key points from 50 cases. I can look at those 50 summaries and immediately say, okay, well, this one, it's related to the same kind of topic, but it's just tenuous, vaguely related. I don't even need to worry about that one. Okay, this one has some interesting pieces in the summary. Let me go read that case. I could see that being very useful and effective. Now, that said, there should absolutely be some concerns, and I'll go ahead and get these two stories out of the way before we dig into the rest of what I want to talk about this morning. But this story is from June of last year. New York lawyers sanctioned for using fake ChatGPT cases in legal brief. So I'm going to read a good chunk of this article to you, but let me summarize it for you real quick. In this case, the lawyers used ChatGPT to help make their argument, to help construct their argument. Now, what I just described a moment ago, where you use something like a ChatGPT X, etc., to go and find you several cases related to your contention, that's great. That could be awesome if it works well. Basically, what you're doing is you're getting paralegal services for free. But in this case, what happened is the lawyers asked ChatGPT to do the work for them, and instead of finding cases that matched the case law in question, ChatGPT actually generated from whole cloth legal summaries of cases that never happened. And in those cases, they cited to other cases which were also completely fabricated, had never been rendered by a judge or a court. Legion says ChatGPT is a powerful tool for the Claudine Gaze of this world. Hell yes. And on a related note, there is a thing going on right now. And it is prevalent enough that there's comedy related to it. I saw an ad for, I think, Xfinity Internet bragging about how fast their internet service is a little while ago. This was, I think the ad first came out months ago. And it's a bunch of kids, like 8 to 10-year-old kids in the big office, and they're bragging about how fast their internet is and how all these old fogies just they're old, they're the olds, we're the news. And one of them quips, "Oh yeah, it's so fast it lets me use AI or it lets me use ChatGPT to do my homework even faster." And one of the adults looks over and says, "Wait, what?" And the kid's like, "What? What?" Right. And it's a cute, funny little joke, but that's a thing that's happening. College students are writing their papers, or rather, they're having ChatGPT and similar tools ghostwrite their papers. And many of these large language models, there are tools for professors and teachers to use where they can take the text of a paper that you've submitted as your original academic work, and they can feed it into another program which will read the document, and it checks the document for plagiarism. It checks the document for citation accuracy, because sometimes plagiarism isn't I'm stealing somebody else's words. Sometimes plagiarism is I'm bad at writing citations, and even though I cited my work, I cited it incorrectly, and that can even be as simple as a formatting issue, but it's still technically plagiarism. But it'll also check for not just plagiarism, but it'll check for AI generation. Many of these newer large language models like ChatGPT, X, etc., they do a very good job of fooling those AI trackers that the teachers are attempting to use to prevent students from simply going to ChatGPT and say, "Hey, I need a 1,500-word book report on where the red fern grows." Go. Right? Just by way of example, let me pull up ChatGPT and write me a book report on where the red fern grows. It should be 1,000 words long. So we'll let that work while we're talking. Here you go. Where the Red Fern Grows is a classic novel written by Wilson Rawls. Okay, and and I've just finished my homework, right? This is something that's happening. And, obviously this tracks back to another thing that we've talked about before. I don't know your phone number, right? I barely know my wife's phone number. I have to chew on my own skull to remember my wife's phone number now. 20 years ago, you knew 50 to 100 phone numbers off the top of your head. And a couple of things have changed. It's not just that we've fallen out of the habit of believing that we have a need to remember phone numbers, but there are two major mnemonic devices that have completely been vitiated by the smartphone, right? Not cell phones generally, specifically the smartphones. Think about it. It used to be that somebody would tell you a phone number and you had your trick, you'd say it 3 times, you'd say it 7 times to yourself, or you'd write it down. By the time you dialed that number a half a dozen or so times, it wasn't actually that you memorized the number, right? Neurophysiologically, that's not what you did. You didn't memorize that series of digits. What you did is you had a neurophysiological and muscle memory connection to the activity of repeatedly entering that number into a device. And so you made a linguistic connection between that series of numbers and the series of phonetic utterances that constituted the name of the person to whom that number belonged. You don't do that anymore. You add a new phone number. In rare occasions, you might dial that number into your phone the first time you dial it. But normally, if it's another person's number, one of you sends a text message or makes a phone call to the other, and then you both save the number under the name of that contact if it's one that you're likely to make contact with again, or it's a number that you're never going to dial again, so you don't bother to remember it, or it's a number that you need right now, you may need several times today, but what you do is you look at a service provider or something, a plumber, an electrician, etc. You look up the number on the internet, you click the link to the number, so you read the number, but you never actually dial in. You click the link, you hit the call this number button, they answer the phone, and if you have to call them back, you go to your recent calls log and you click on the number again. If you can even remember which one it is, and if you can't, you go back to Google, you look it up again. You never actually dial the number, right? Imagine a world where children never read books because ChatGPT will write their book report, right? I mean, this thing's fantastic. Blower motor went out of my truck week before last, and I pulled up video, watched how to do it. Not complicated. It's not a skill set that I already had. I didn't know how to replace the blower motor in my 2001 F-150. I watched a 6-minute YouTube video. I ordered the part from Amazon. It got here 2 days later. Took me about 5 minutes to realize that I'm old and I don't fucking wanna. And I went down the street and paid some kid $50 to do it for me. But I knew what I was doing. I knew it well enough to figure out I didn't want to do it. And that's a funny anecdote, but the truth of the matter is, mechanics, younger mechanics, they don't just know how to do it. Not like the old guys did. Because they want to do a thing, they look up the video. If it's not one that they do routinely, they look up the video. So, on the one hand, that dramatically expands their access to knowledge, but it does not expand. In fact, I would go so far as to say that because it's a habit-forming technique, it actually contracts their direct skill base. Xander says, if you're a law firm with 10 attorneys, you're paying Westlaw about $30K a month. Oh, $3,000 a month. If AI tools start impinging on that, it's going to be a big old fight. Yeah, so let me get back to this article real quick. The New York lawyers. So a U.S. judge on Thursday imposed sanctions on 2 New York lawyers who submitted a legal brief that included 6 fictitious case citations generated by ChatGPT. The judge found the lawyers acted in bad faith and made acts of conscious avoidance and false and misleading statements to the court. Now, in this case, what you have is the kid is turning in a book report for a book he never read. Now, when I was a kid, kids would do that. They'd turn in a book report for a book that they never read. They would skim enough to get some minor details, use a bunch of fluff and filler bullshit words, and spit out a book report that checked all the boxes, right? It's this many words, it's this many paragraphs, etc., and turn it in and accept their C on their homework. But if you do it this way, the kid doesn't even have to skim the report itself. They just print the son of a bitch and turn it in. They may not know that there's a dog in where the red fern grows. They certainly haven't cried about it. And that's what these lawyers have done, is they've essentially asked the AI to do their work for them, and it did it badly. It did it very badly, because it's if the AI is fabricating case law, imagine if the judge in this case had not noticed or questioned those citations. As there's a lot of judges and a lot of lawyers in this country. I find it difficult to believe that this case is totally isolated. In fact, when I say I find it difficult to believe that this case is totally isolated, I would like to point out that Michael Cohen also did this. Michael Cohen, right? That's a name you've heard before. Michael Cohen arrives at New York Supreme Court for former President Donald Trump's civil business fraud trial on October 25th, 2023 in New York. Cohen says he unwittingly passed along to his attorney bogus artificial intelligence-generated legal case citations he got online before they were submitted to a New York judge. Oh, shit. So, I was really hoping to show off how it's going to be useful, and I talked about it already this morning. This tool is going to be very useful for Grok to be able to summarize legal documents once it's up and working. This will be incredibly useful for me, for guys like Alex, for those of us who cover the news, and part of that news, we love Supreme Court decisions, right? We're big fans of covering what comes out of the Supreme Court, even when they get it right. Just for the sake of making the show interesting and entertaining, I almost prefer when the court gets it wrong, right? It's just the show's less interesting when I agree with the court, I think, because who doesn't like to watch me kick a liberal? Anyway, so I'm just going to share with you kind of the conversation that I had with Grok this morning. It's gonna take me just a second to get back up to the top of this one, and you'll be amused when I tell you why. So, Elon Musk's X overhaul. Nope. There we go. So Grok said, I said, can you bring up the conversation we were having about Grok legal summaries? That I was doing it on my phone earlier. And Grok says, sure, let's continue our conversation about Grok legal summaries. In our previous discussion, we talked about the potential of Grok to provide legal summaries and how it could help users understand complex legal documents more easily. We also mentioned that Grok's ability to summarize laws and legal documents could be a game changer for the average person, as it would provide them with a better understanding of the legal system. Additionally, we touched on the importance of Grok being able to decipher the nuance of medical conclusions and how it could potentially improve the overall understanding of medical-related laws and regulations. So then I actually had it write the title, description, and tags for this show, for this episode of the show, precisely because I'm talking about the Grok AI thing. And of course, the description it came up with is the description on the show where you click the thumbnail. but it's discovered the groundbreaking Grok AI legal document summary feature designed to empower conservatives and veterans with accurate and concise summaries of complex legal cases. This live stream will discuss the benefits of this innovative tool for news and reporting, while also examining potential pitfalls if used inappropriate by legal professions, blah, 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 blah. And then I said, hey, Grok, summarize, and then I dropped in a link to a PDF. And Grok said, and I actually found this very interesting. Grok said, I currently don't have the capability to access the content of a PDF file. Now, I want you to look at this. This is the PDF extension that I dropped in. It's from a link to the Supreme Court.gov opinions, and it just has a case number, right? The title of the case doesn't come up anywhere in this extension. So there's at least some extent to which Grok was able to access or associate this PDF designator with the correct case, because this wasn't what I tried to give it was in fact the entire full text of the Bruin decision, which, I mean, this is the Bruin decision, right? New York State Rifle and Pistol Association Incorporated et al. V. Bruin, Superintendent of New York State Police. And it's a 135-page document. Alex says, this is a new enough that I believe this is the first instance judges have their clerks pull every single citation for review. We have heard this before. Well, I'm not sure about, yes, judges are supposed to have their clerks pull every single citation for review, but that doesn't mean that it always happens, especially in smaller municipalities and, country courts. All the citations is a lot of work when you're talking about all the cases that any single judge hears. They should be having every single citation pulled for review by their clerks, but that doesn't guarantee that that happens. But anyway, it was from the PDF able to give me a very basic summary. I haven't tried this with an omnibus bill yet, and that's something that I'll be playing with more. And as this tool develops, I'll be playing with it more and more until it gets to a point where I think I can really make use of it. This says, in the case of New York State Rifle and Pistol Association Incorporated v. Bruin, the Supreme Court ruled that New York's proper cause requirement for obtaining an unrestricted license to carry a concealed firearm in public violates the 14th Amendment. The decision, now that's interesting. I don't know if it got that wrong. The decision handed down on June 23rd, 2022, struck down a New York law that required individuals to demonstrate a special need for self-defense to obtain such a license. It says in the summary that it violates the 14th Amendment. That's interesting. But anyway, it tried to do, so it did that. And I thought, this seems like a much too concise summary of such a very long document. So the next thing I did is I copied and pasted the entire text of Bruin into Grok. And it gets way down here. I mean, it's a 135-page document. Waller says he likes to use Speechify rather than using AI to summarize documents. So let me get back up here. And okay, so we get to the end, fully dissent. Grok says, your input is as lengthy as the history of the universe. Could you summarize for us, please? I said, no, I'm looking for you to summarize it to me. Grok says, my apologies for the misunderstanding. Here's a summary of the information for you. It's March 7th. It's 4:24 in the morning, Pacific Standard Time. I hope this helps. It doesn't. And then I asked, what happened to the new legal doc summary you're supposed to have? Grok says, I apologize for the confusion. I've not been provided with any new legal documents summary, however, and there we go. So basically, the feature is not yet ready for prime time, in my opinion, but it is not completely useless either. I can't wait to see what it tries to do with an omnibus or a Senate bill. I'll be experimenting with those a bit too, but I have some optimism and I have some concerns. The whole AI thing is terrifying. It's terrifying for several reasons, not least of which, like we've just seen the whole debacle with Google. There is an absolute capture of institutions, and those institutions include the data scientists, computer scientists, technicians, and programmers who are writing the code that powers these AIs. Right? There's a total capture there by psychotic leftists. And so, of course, there's a huge and dangerous anti-liberty, anti-prosperity bias, anti-white racist bias in many of these platforms. Now, Elon was at the helm on Grok, at least in a managerial capacity. I have some faith in Grok being a better AI than its competitors. And if I'm being fair, a great deal of that faith comes not from anything that I know in particular about Grok or Elon, but in what we do know about ChatGPT, Gemini, and the others. That the bar is so very low for those that Grok almost cannot help but be significantly better and safer. So there's that. And then, of course, all caution to anybody who makes use of these. If you're doing a news opinion and analysis show, right? I'm okay with being wrong. I can read the summary, do my analysis, make some informed opinions, and give you guys those informed opinions. And if I turn out to be wrong and somebody calls me on it, that's awesome. Let's talk about it. You know, I mean, it doesn't happen often, but I am occasionally wrong. And, you know, I that's an opportunity for me to learn something. Even if the only thing that I actually learn is that I cannot trust the source on which I made the original analytic decision or opinion. That's cool. We can work with that. But if you're trying to stay on the bar, trying not to get kicked off the bench, trying to keep your practice open, I would advise the use of a tool like this. And this is not the only one, mind you. I would advise the use of tools like this with extreme caution. There are some AI systems that are already doing the thing that Grok is claiming that it's going to start doing soon. Grok even lists some of them. Legalmation, Case Text, and Law Geeks apparently do the thing that I was hoping that Grok was getting ready to do. And those are probably very useful tools. They're probably much more carefully tailored to the specific case use for lawyers to use them. But even then, I mean, how many lawyers out there will tell you, I'm not asking how many of them do it, will tell you that it's a bad idea to let your paralegal do all the work without checking? Right? Because at the end of the day, of course, it is your name that you're signing on that bottom line. It is your oath that you're swearing. It is, ChatGPT doesn't bear any legal responsibility. And that may be a problem too. That may prove to be a serious problem in the future that the courts have to deal with. And I'll close on this. During the whole Google Gemini debacle, it wasn't just I refuse to show you an image of a white person because we're attempting to erase and genocide them all off the planet. It was also doing things like Google Gemini produced an article in response to a question that that only referenced the character of Cat Turd, did not reference any particular sexual predilections, deviancies, etc. And Google Gemini generated an article that claimed that Cat Turd had been investigated or accused. Like, basically, it called him a pedophile. It said that he was dangerous and caused harm to children and all of that stuff. And it's like, whoa, okay. That's libel per se. Malice is not a factor in the court's decision on whether or not the culpability of libel lies with the generator. But is it Gemini, the AI, or is it Google, the company, that bears that responsibility for the libel per se? And that is a complex question that will have to be argued in court. And I suspect that they cannot generate a satisfactory answer to that question. Right? I mean, let's say you're the person who asks the AI the question, that no reasonable person could extrapolate an insinuation of the libelous content of the reply from the question, and the AI generates the libelous reply anyway. Do you, as the person operating the AI, which is a tool, do you, as the person operating that tool, bear any of that legal responsibility? That's going to be a complex question, and it's going to be interesting to see it develop. And frankly, I hope Cat Turd just sues the absolute fucking pants off of Google over exactly that accusation. That would be chef's kiss salt. So I am going to have to go ahead and wrap this one up. I've got work to do this morning. Thanks for watching this morning, guys. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.